to remind you that we're having Revelation Station today. All our young folk know to go to Children's Church. Let them go. If you've not been here before, they'll get a message at their level that they'll enjoy. So Revelation Station. Train is taking off, as we say. Last month I had we had the blessing last month of concentrating exclusively on one topic the entire month, prayer. Everything we did at 45th Street was about prayer. Sermons were about prayer. Bible study was about prayer. We had a daily prayer call-in line that we normally only do twice a month, but we did it every single day. Every Saturday, we had a prayer concert here at the church. So every single day of the month, we wanted to show the Lord that we are serious about prayer at 45th Street. If you don't know it, we have prayed our way through all the elements of 45th Street, through all our ministries. If you don't know it, we have prayed for every member of 45th Street and the folk in your house too, if we knew them. And we didn't just say, pray for 45th Street. We called your name. And we called your name. We asked the Lord to bless you because we want him to know that you are important to us, because I believe that what's important to us, Casanova, in a spiritual realm is important to God as well. And so we lift you up. And we continue to do that. And I don't know if you participated in any of those prayer activities during the month. If you did, awesome. If you didn't, today is the day to start. Now is the time to start participating in prayer. Prayer is one of those things that never gets stale. It's always fresh to pray. So don't worry about whether or not you were in on that. Just start now. I saw the visitor stand up over here. I don't know that she's for real a technical visitor, maybe to the worship service, but she's been coming to Bible study on the regular lately. And so we're glad about that. It's good to see her in worship. What a way to start, by coming to Bible study. Not just coming, participating. She's been talking back to me. I love it. But we talked about prayer all last month in a sermon series. I want to go a different direction. Normally, the month of November is our stewardship month. We concentrate just on stewardship for November. But I think I want to lead into that a little bit earlier than November. And so perhaps these next few messages will surround the topic of stewardship. Sometimes we just think stewardship is about money. Stewardship is about a whole lot more than money. Stewardship is about heart. Stewardship is about who has your heart. Because if the Lord has your heart, he has every single thing else that you have. And I don't ever have to mention money. All I have to do is remind you or suggest to you that you take care of your responsibility. And I know so many people have grown in that respect, and I'm so glad about it. So glad that you are fulfilling your responsibility to the Lord, because there's some things coming up here at 45th Street where stewardship is going to be put to the test. Oh yeah, we're going to ask you to do some sacrificial things for 45th Street so that we can grow as an organization. It's good when you grow personally, but when you're attached to organizations that you believe in, you have to help them grow too. Things you need at your home, we need at this home. We have to update systems and buy new things and create expanded opportunities for folk. And I'm telling you that that's coming along, and it's going to be done in a way that every single person in the congregation can participate in it. But I am going to tell you, it's going to take some sacrifice. We're going to ask you to sacrifice, just like you do at your own house. You decide you want to get a new house or a new car. Sometimes for a while you go by taking a sack lunch. Come on now. I know what I'm talking about. You don't always go out to eat. Yeah, you pull back a little bit so you can store up a little and handle your business. Well, the same thing applies at the church as well. I got an uncle. He's got two of his daughters in here right now. He built 2 churches up there as pastor in Trussville. First time he came up there, he told me he was going to build a church on a 6-pack. That's what he said now. That's what he said. He said, we're going to build this new church 1 6-pack at a time. And what he was saying is, if you just don't buy that 6-pack and put your money away, we can get to this. Now, here he is, 2 churches later. Don't tell me what God can't do now, if we let him. But today I want to turn you to a familiar passage of Scripture for most people who have been in church. You know the story, even if you don't know all the verses. It comes from the Gospel according to Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. You know the story by the title. It's a parable that Jesus told, but you know it by the title of the Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan. And I want to talk to you about that in a little different way today. And I want to use, if I have to have a central thought, then the central thought for this message will simply be, if I can help somebody. All right? If I can help somebody. If I can help somebody. In 1964, there was a very famous crime committed. It took place in New York City, in New York, in the borough of Queens, specifically in an area called Kew Gardens. I know that area because my sister lived there for a while. But there was a woman there named Catherine Kitty Genovese. She worked in a bar as the manager. She's 28 years old. One night she was on her way home from work. She parked her car in the lot adjacent to her building. She got out and she was walking across the lot. It was dark, of course, because it was after a bar closes. No one else was out there. She thought, as she started walking across the parking lot, she noticed a man. Made her nervous. And so halfway there, she turned around to go back to her car. And she realized that the man was chasing her. This man chased her down for no apparent reason and began to assault her. And as he was assaulting her, he started to stab her. She screamed, as anyone would, for everything she had. Suddenly, in the apartments and houses around her, lights started coming on. People started letting up their window, yelling, "Leave her alone." The attacker was momentarily distracted, stopped the assault, ran away. Soon as the action seemed to stop, lights in the apartments went out. No one ever came out on the street to help her. No one stopped long enough to go out and see if she was okay, despite her screams. She finally was able to drag herself to her apartment building. A strange thing happened as she made it to her apartment building. It seems that when the lights went out, after the rodent who was attacking her had scurried away, you know, when the lights come on, they run away. When the lights go out, guess what? They come back. That's exactly what happened after she dragged herself to her apartment building. In the vestibule of it, he came back and he finished what he started. And he stabbed her. She screamed and screamed. Made headlines because all night long, nobody came out to help her. Nobody, despite the fact that she screamed and screamed, nobody came out to stop him. As the law would have it, they were able to. She died. She died. And as the law would have it, they were able to catch him. Found out who he was. Convicted him. And by July of that year, he was in jail, where he remained until March of this year. 52 years for that murder. He stayed in jail until he too died in jail. His name was Winston Moseley. To this day, nobody knows why he did what he did. But he killed him. But that's not the story. The story is nobody helped her. Nobody got up out of their seat other than to let the window up and yell at him for a minute. Nobody went down to see if she was okay. They found her the next morning. No one had called 911 or whatever the emergency line was. It wasn't 911 in 1964. Nobody dialed 0. Said, come help this woman. None of that happened. She just died there by herself. And said, why in the world are you talking about that this Sunday morning? Because every Sunday evening I go home and I see situations where folk out there getting hurt. 4-year-old babies getting killed. 6-year-old babies running out to recess, get shot, just running out the door, and die from their wounds. We got people in our community mighty afraid that ain't nobody trying to help them now. I hear them yelling. I hear the sirens going. But my concern is that nobody's trying to help them. And so I thought, well, maybe, we don't think we're supposed to help them. Maybe we think that's not our obligation. And so the Lord led me to this scripture. I want to read it to you because it teaches us some lessons that I believe we can apply to our lives and tell us what our obligations are. Luke recorded from his investigation, because Luke wasn't there. Luke was not a part of Jesus' disciple group, and so he would have had to get his information from others who were there. All right? And so he recorded that Jesus told this parable. He said that there was a lawyer, imagine that, who stood up trying to test Jesus. And he said to him, "Teacher," I'm sure that was sarcastic, "what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus said to him, "What's written in the law? What is your reading, Mr. Lawyer, of the law?" And so the lawyer said what everybody knew. You didn't have to be a lawyer to know that the law said, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and you should love your neighbor as yourself." And Jesus said to him, "You have rightly answered. Do this and you will live." But verse 29 is the action verse in this story. Verse 29 says, "And he," that would be the lawyer, wanting to justify himself, puff himself up, said to Jesus, "So who is my neighbor? Who is my neighbor?" And that's when Jesus, Casanova, launched into the parable of the Good Samaritan. And to make it short, there's a man who came down a dangerous road from Jerusalem to a place called Jericho. The road was known to be dangerous. You wouldn't travel there at night. This might have some overtones of some of our parts of our community that we think we're not supposed to travel in. And this man traveled through this community, and as he was traveling through the community, somebody jumped on him, beat him up, and robbed him, left him for dead. And while he was laying there, hello, Kitty Genovese, folk came by. The first one was a preacher, a priest. He came by, and Scripture says that when he saw the man laying there, he went to the other side of the road. And after that, a Levite, another church worker, came up through the family of Levi, which is why he was a Levite. He came to the same place, saw the man laying there, and he too went to the other side of the road. And then Jesus did what Jesus could only do, and he did it so magnificently. Jesus took the one who society considered to be the lowest of the low. Not that they were, but society considered him to be the lowest of the low. Jesus, as if he were a black man talking to an audience full of white folk during the middle of Jim Crow, made the hero of his story Nat Turner. I want you to understand the politics that Jesus is wrestling with here. He's not just telling anybody, he's telling Jews that the hero of the story is a Samaritan. The Jews hated Samaritans. The Jews would not worship with Samaritans. The Jews would not walk through Samaria. When Jesus was with his disciples, you know the story of Jesus meeting the woman at the well? Well, the reason why they were at the well is because in order to get where they needed to go, the Bible said they must go through Samaria. And instead of going through Samaria, they would choose to go around. That's how much they hated Samaritans. And in this parable, see, you know the title of the parable as the Good Samaritan. You didn't know that was said tongue in cheek. Because the Jews didn't think there was no such thing as a good Samaritan. Jesus makes the Samaritan the one who sees the man. Not only does he see him, the Bible says that when he sees the man, I love the language, he stops, he stoops, he serves him, and then he supplies him with all he needs. He picks the man up, puts him on his own beast of burden, his own donkey, takes him to the closest inn. When he gets him to the inn, he and the innkeeper nurse the man. And when he's leaving, he doesn't know this man. He never met him before, but he's just a stranger who needs some help. And so the Samaritan gives the innkeeper some money and says, take care of him till I come back. And then he's on his way. I love this part of the story in the scripture because he's on his way out the door. And it's almost as if the Holy Spirit taps him on the shoulder. And he says, by the way, if you spend more than I gave you, when I come back, I'll repay you for everything you spent. The Good Samaritan, whatever more you spend. Church, it's our duty to help folk when they fall. It's our duty to help people when we see them unable to get up after life has pummeled them, beating them down to a core. It's our duty to extend our resources to people when they can't help themselves. And Jesus was very plain. The Old Testament starts out by telling us this. This is not something new. Jesus didn't tell something that had just started. Look at this. This is in Exodus chapter 23, verse 4. It reads, if you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, your enemies, be sure to take him back to him. This is your enemy. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you falling down under its load, do not leave it there. Be sure to help him with it. Do not defraud your neighbor or rob him, Leviticus says. Do not hold back the wages of a hired man overnight, Donald Trump. Do not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block in front of the blind, but fear your God, I am the Lord. Do not pervert justice. Do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. Do not go about spreading slander among your people. Do not do anything that endangers your neighbor's life. Do not hate your brother in your heart. Rebuke your neighbor frankly so that you shall not share in his guilt. And do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against one of your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. My Lord. The lawyer just had to go in on Jesus. He just had to. He couldn't stop himself. He had to go in and ask that one fatal question, who is my neighbor? But he brings up a point that today we need to answer ourselves. Who is my neighbor? Who do I have to take care of? I know that in some respects, society sees us as Samaritans. Come on now, you know I'm telling the truth about it. They see us as Samaritans. Let me tell you how I know. Because if you want to know anything negative in in America, just put black on it. Anything negative. Look, if you're going to get somebody back, they say you blackmail them. If you awful, they say you black-hearted. Yeah. They even take the pirates. The pirates bad enough. They already robbers and thieves, but they got to be Blackbeard. In the military, when they go undercover and sneaking around at night, they call it black ops. Don't act like you don't understand that in this society, we are seen like Samaritans. But I came to tell you today that in Jesus' story, we're heroes. Not just because you're black. No. What Jesus did was identify someone who was good-hearted, who was of good repute, who did not take the categorizations that society had placed on them and let them be limitations in how they treated someone. And I came to tell you today, just because they call you something don't mean you have to act like that. Doesn't mean you have to be there. You can still be. In fact, you can put your own label on, and many of us have called ourselves Christians. And if we're going to be Christians, there's a certain way you and I have to act. We are required to help somebody. It's just part of what we have to do. And so when you start looking around trying to find out who your neighbor is, I came to tell you, everybody's your neighbor. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you like them or not. Doesn't matter if they're rich or poor. Doesn't matter what color they are, where they come from, whether they came across the border or around the wall or over the water. Wherever they come from, the Bible says that they are our neighbor. Nobody in America has a right to try to turn around and tell somebody else they can't come to freedom. Ain't but one group that was here when we got here, when we were brought here. There was one group already here. Everybody else came by invitation or stole their way in. And so for us to now get to a place where we're trying to block folk from coming, everybody, believers, is your neighbor. But sometimes we get to the place where we only want to help our own kind. You know that, right? Yeah, I just want to help my own kind. That's what folks say. In fact, we get into these codes that people talk about. And we start talking about, we use catchphrases that folk understand, and it's ridiculous. because there's some codes I'd never be a part of. There's some catchphrases that would never fit me. I hate the fact that folk use this terminology called conservative values. We're going to take care of all conservatives. I don't know what that means. And we're going to take care of liberals are horrible, but conservatives are awesome. When we get to, all we're doing is doing Samaritans, Jews, black, white. All we do is turn the tables, put different labels on folk. I'm here to tell you right now, don't get caught up. And all of this foolishness that's doing nothing but separating us. Don't you know that the greatest thing they can do is separate us? When you start identifying with one group or another group, the only one you need to be identifying with in this group is called Jesus Christ. And look, if you black, white, green, yellow, it doesn't matter. If you love the Lord, I'm with you. I'm with you. Why? Because it's part of my obligation to be supportive of you. Who needs your help is the question. Can you help them? When you start trying to find out who your neighbor is, the answer is simply anyone who needs your help. Anyone who needs your help. Now, I need you to understand this, that this was a startling answer for Jesus to give the Jews at that time, because they had historically been told that certain people can be your enemies. God had specifically told them that certain people they were not to associate with, they were to disassociate with them. When you go in and you take this land, God said, I want you to kill everything in there. And not only them, I want you to kill the dog, the cat, the goldfish, everything. Don't bring any of that stuff out with you, because I don't want it to taint my people. That's what he told them. And so they were confused about who they should associate with. And that was what God required them to do. Under the law, they were required to do exactly what he said. But you and I know we live under grace now. We live under Jesus Christ's grace. And some of us would have been on the wrong side except for Jesus' grace. We would have. We would have. And so when we start identifying who we don't deal with, let's be careful, because somebody would have drawn a circle around us and said you can't deal with that person. What I'm trying to tell you, what I want you to understand walking out of here is, know who your neighbor is, and that is anybody who needs help. And then the question is, what is my duty to that person? How do I help that person? And the answer simply is, you should have pity on them. But not just pity, because pity is an emotion. You should not only have pity, but you should help them with whatever resources you have. Pity without participation is simply impassioned observation. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's you remember back in the day, there was a commercial. Some of you old enough to remember this. There was a commercial. It was an anti-littering commercial. And it showed this Indian. And he was standing up, and he was looking at a river that was full of debris, full of trash. And then there's just one tear fell from his eye. Y'all remember that commercial? Yeah. And then the announcer would come on and say, "Don't litter." All right? Don't litter. It was an effective commercial at the time. All right? It started, I think, the beginning of an anti-littering campaign. But can I tell you what? You can put all the folk in the world and let them stand up at the river and drop as many tears as they want. That's pity. But until somebody reach down and pick some of that trash up, you're not going to get the rivers clean. And what I'm telling you right now, church, is we're standing looking at our community and all of us dropping tears. But nobody is bending their back, going in there doing anything to help people who need help. You have to help people. And we can't help folks just by praying for them on Sunday morning. No, we got to feed them on Sunday evening. We got to read to them on Monday morning. We got to give them clothes on Tuesday. We got to help people with the resources that God has given to us. If I can help somebody, I guess the other part of it would be I ought to help them. I should help them. There is no doubt that this Samaritan gives us exactly the formula for helping people. Jesus was right in all respects that we need to make sure that people understand what our Christian values are all about. And I honestly believe that part of the reason people are confused about coming to church is because we don't show them what we're about. We don't. We put too much form or over actually working. Come on now. Y'all ain't got to say amen. Oh, we do. We love to dress up. We do. We love to look good. But in order to help folk, you got to get dirty. You got to go out and actually do something to help them. And while it's good to give money, what's better is to give yourself in service. Now, I understand what you're saying, that, we do our Christian duty, but too often the only people we do ministry to are folk in the church. We got to step outside the church. I want us to step outside the church. I'm leading us to step outside the church and help more people, not too far from us. Not too far from us. For the last 2 Sundays, I've gone home in the evening, and the action for our Birmingham police officers for the last 2 weeks has been about 5 blocks from us, where folk have gotten shot and killed. Right out our door. Right out our door, right down here in Gate City. That's what happens. The last 2 Sundays I've gone home, almost make you cringe when Sunday evening comes. Dreading whether something's going to happen. Guess what? Those are our neighbors. Those folks are our neighbors. I called one of the pastors of a church between here and there, and I said, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How do we help our neighbors? And he told me. He said a lot of the folk who are creating problems over there don't live over there. They're coming from other parts of the community, but guess what? They're our neighbor too. Amen. Not just the folk out our front door, but the folk out our back door, out the side window. All these folk are our neighbors, and when one neighbor at the side door feels he got to come take something from the neighbor, that's a problem. And we got to help with that. We got to help with that. There are 5 churches on this block. 5. There ought not be anybody on this block who's not reached, that wants to be reached. Not just on this block. As we spread out, there shouldn't be anybody, but guess who's got to reach them? We do. Texting is good, but talking is better. Yeah. Witnessing without walking becomes really hard. We got to do something to help folk. If not, I guarantee you, it's almost like a cancer. It'll spread and it'll take this church out. It'll take every church out around here. If we allow evil to continue to spread around us, if we allow wrong to continue. I know it happens. When I first started in 2004, we didn't have to have no police officers sitting out there. Here we are now, because the bad stuff spreads. Now every time we come out here, we got to have police officers sitting out there, watching and waiting to see what's going on. Before long, we're going to need a police officer in the front and in the back. I'm not willing to let it go that far. This ought to be a safe haven. But it only becomes a safe haven if we learn how to help somebody, which means we got to open the door and let whosoever will. There's a difference in whosoever will and whosoever we want. Oh, there's a difference. Many times churches simply want to grow by getting whosoever we want. But we need to make sure we concentrate on whosoever will, or else we're going to continue to have problems. Why do we have this problem? Why is this scourge going on in our community? Well, one of the reasons is because people are not adequately prepared for life. And then they find out that the things they need for life to be successful, they still want, but they don't know how to go and get it. I tell you, I'm right about it. You need an education in life because an education allows a foundation for you to live a decent lifestyle. But even if you don't have an education, you still want to lead a different lifestyle. And so you go about doing other things to support yourself, and those other things can cross legal boundaries sometimes. And it can create problems for us. You got to help people become resourced and adequately supplied for life itself. I want you to understand, if you don't have the resources in life, that means you don't have health insurance. If you don't have the resources in life, that means you can't get a job enough to take care of the children you make. If you don't have the resources in life, you're miserable. You're miserable. We have an obligation to help in that way if we can. We know children struggle educationally, but a lot of times the reason they struggle educationally is because home is raggedy. They're not prepared to learn. They're not even set up to learn in a sustained way. If Johnny goes home, if the best place he's got to come is school, then we got a problem. If everything you learn at school goes away when you go home, that's a problem. That's a problem. I want you to understand, we have got to create this web of support that our communities need. That's our job as a church. That's how we learn how to help people, by creating the systems that support them. That's why we got a STAIR program. That's why we help kids who cannot read on grade level in the first and second grade. Guess what? If they get to the third grade and they still can't read, the chances of them finishing school goes down significantly. That's why now for, I don't know how many years, 8 years now, we take the students they give us and we support them by helping to bring their DIBEL scores up so that they can read properly. That's ministry. That's what God requires us to do. We've moved into a different era when we have to support people like that. If I can help somebody, then I ought to help them, and we can do that. But guess what? We need more folk who will come out and spend an hour of their time helping children learn how to read. I don't know if you know this. We got a lot of babies coming around here. If you don't know this, your baby should be able to read before they go to school. They ought to be able to read before they go to school, which means you have to be doing something at home to teach them how to read. And that does not mean sticking a little Einstein in front of them. Dora ain't going to teach them how to read. Not with understanding. They coming in there saying Spanish you don't understand. This is the new ministry. That's really the old ministry. It's simply if I can help somebody. Yeah, pray for people, but feed them too. Pray for people, but teach them too. We cannot allow our children to continue to grow up in this cesspool of ignorance and expect that somehow, some way, they're going to make it out. They're not going to. It's our job to drag them out, kicking and screaming. It's our job to put barriers around them. Church is supposed to be a prophylactic to all that stuff that's going on. We're supposed to create environments that make it conducive for people to learn in every capacity. We've been putting too much social work on teachers. They ain't supposed to be washing your child's face when they get there. That's supposed to happen at home. And if you don't know how to do it, somebody needs to create a program to teach you how to take care of your child. If you don't know how to read yourself, then you need to be courageous enough to say, I need some help myself. This is what ministry is. We way past just having Bible beads. We way past that. We can have that too. Bible bowls are good, but soup bowls are better. All right? They're good. But we got to help folk. And that's what Jesus is saying, help people. Because for some reason, young people realize they think falsely that they got what it takes to make it. You ever seen an 18 or 19-year-old kid that think they got everything they need to make it? Ready to leave home. Soon as the door, it's like they're watching the latch on the door until it pops to open, and then, pew, they want to jump out the door. Want to go to college. Most of them don't realize they end up back at home after they get a degree. After they get a degree. The chances are, in this day and time, 2/3 of them will wind up back at home after they get a 4-year college degree. In Alabama, that's saying a lot, since less than 30% of the adult population in Alabama has a college degree. Less than 30% has a college degree. And yet, they still want to live that high life. They want to live that high life. It's hard to live the high life when you still sleeping on your door sheets in your mom and daddy's house. Still got your cowboy and Indian stuff going on in there, but you balling. We got to help folk get beyond. They believe they're supplied for life. Look, this man who came down the Samaritan road, who came down the road to Jericho, thought he had what he needed. He was reckless in his life. He was reckless. He was. But it's the circumstances of life that reveal your inadequacy. It's when life shows up that you realize you don't have what you need. Too many times, let me tell you the problem I've been seeing too much is that we block our children from the realities of life. We block them. We keep them from realizing the sting that comes from life. We do that. And then when they're finally exposed to it, they realize they are inadequately prepared. Or if, God forbid, the Lord calls you home, ain't nobody going to take care of Junior like you take care of Junior. And then Junior finds out, I don't have what I need. It happens in all sorts of ways. Let me tell you, mamas and daddies protect their children. They do what they can for their children, but we can't do it to their detriment. All right? We realized my mama died 20 years ago. We realized when my mama died that at the time she died in 1996, that we, Karen and I, Andre and Karen, had never bought a coat for Brittany. Never. Every coat Brittany had ever had, my mama bought. You know how we realized it? Hear me what I'm saying. We realized it because cold came. And when cold came, we were inadequately prepared to deal with life. Mama wasn't there to buy no coat no more. We had to figure out how to buy a coat. I'm here to tell you right now, some of you have got your children inadequately prepared. Cold is coming, and you're not going to be able to buy a coat for them if you don't have preparation made. You got to get them in place. We got a whole community of folk out there who are weathering a storm, and they are inadequately prepared. Some of them are arrogant enough to think that they got it. They'll keep on until life shows up and lets them know that they don't have what they need. Circumstances will reveal your inadequacy. We keep on going merrily on our way. And then there's a phone call. This doesn't have to be young folk, Mason. This can be us too. Because we foolishly think we're adequately prepared until we get that phone call. Until that something happens and life is altered. Life changes. And I came to tell you, now I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you. I admire some people in this room, in this congregation right now. Because there's some people in this congregation who are going through some stuff. And they've been going through some stuff for a long, long time. But they are tough. I see them. They wake up in the morning and the problem staring them dead in the face. And in spite of the problem, they go in there and they get dressed. and then they bust the door open and they say, I'm going out. I'm dealing with it today. And I see them, and they show up here, and they got a smile on, but they in pain. Not only they in pain, the problem hadn't gone away. They go as far as they can, and they got something about them because they keep their head up. They don't go tell everybody, my life is raggedy right now. In fact, they'll give you a testimony, and they'll say, me and the Lord going to make it through this. Some tough people in here. That's one thing about God's folk. Yeah, when you know you got the Lord on your side, you can say, I've had some good days. And I've had some weary days. You can say it. I know some folk in here have been saying that. I know you've been complaining inside, but you won't let it come out of your mouth. Can I tell you, Facebook don't help. Yeah, they might like what you put on there. But I came to tell you today that the Lord has already provided for you. If you belong to him, he's already provided for you. Guess what? When he came, he took care of the bill for us. I don't think y'all understand that. Yeah, when he brought us in all tore up and beat up in life, he took us and brought us to the end. See, that's what the church is. The church is the end. And he brought us in, and he told the innkeeper, he said, I'm going to leave something here with you. I'm going to leave it here with you. And this should cover it. How do you know that what he left was enough to cover it? Because the innkeeper didn't complain. No, the innkeeper kept, Justin, the New York lawyer told his young associates that he said if you tell your client the fee for your services and they don't complain, you didn't charge enough. All right? That's what he said. Now, I didn't use that, but I said I was a New York lawyer. I'm an Alabama lawyer. But the truth of the matter is this. The innkeeper took what the Samaritan gave, and he accepted it. He didn't say, hey, hold up. You shorted me on this. In fact, I like this, Richard, after he came and he paid the price. After he paid the price for what we needed. After he bandaged us up. After he brought salvation, he put salve on us. After he put salve on our wounds, after he put salvation on us, gave it to us. I like this, that he was on the way out. He was on the way out, and he looked back and he told the innkeeper, Willie, he said, if anything else is needed, I'm going to make sure that I pay you for it when I get back. Look, some of you are concerned that when you try to help somebody, it's going to take all you got. That wasn't the innkeeper's concern. The innkeeper knew he could use whatever resources he needed to help those who were hurting. And that the Samaritan, shall I say Jesus, the Samaritan was going to take care of it when he got back. Don't you know that you are required to help people even when they mess up themselves? That's important now. We only want to help folk with pretty stuff. But some folk got some raggedy stuff that they get themselves into. Yeah, that you right. He didn't have no business getting no 9 children. He didn't. He could have stopped at 6. He didn't. But you got to help him. Because there's 9 children who still need to be raised properly. No need sitting back, casting your accusatory finger at him. Just help him with the children. I know it don't feel right, but bandage them up. Help the children, because if not, you're going to have 9 more children who got a problem, and then we're going to have to deal with their children too. Help him with his children. Yeah. He was reckless. Yeah, the traveler was reckless, I told you. He had no business on that road by himself. He should have been traveling with somebody. He should not have gone at that time of day. We can come up with all kind of things as to why folks shouldn't be in the situation they're in, and yet they are. Just help them. The Samaritan didn't ask him any of that stuff. He didn't say, why you here by yourself? Where your cell phone? Let me call your in case of emergency. He didn't ask none of that. He just helped them. And then you need to know this, and I'm out of here, that you need to help others even if it puts yourself at risk. You got to do that. Some of us don't want to risk anything. Nothing. I ain't putting them folk in my car. I just had my car clean. Oh, don't act like folk don't, what? Don't act like folk don't say it. You mean give them my good coat? Yeah, we say that. Yeah. Your good coat only good right now. In a minute, it ain't going to be good no more. It's going to be your old coat. That's how we do stuff. You have got to help people even if it puts you at risk. Let me say it like this. Suppose doctors didn't help folk with diseases for fear that they would get the disease themselves. Suppose they said that. You know, there was a time funeral homes wouldn't even help folk who had HIV. Ignorance can stop you from doing certain things. But thank God there are people who put themselves at risk. Thank God there are teachers who go into their children's savings, their children's money to take care of your child. Thank God for that. Thank God there are nurses who, when you fall, when you throw up, they come clean up. Thank God there are firemen who, when you go to sleep cooking them oil-out of potatoes on your stove, burn your house up, they run in there and get you and your folk up out of there. Thank God there are people that put themselves at risk when you mess up. When you and your wife get into an argument, going in on each other. Thank God there are police officers who show up and get between both of y'all. People who put themselves at risk. Who are we to think that God has gotten us to this place in life so that all we have to do is sit and look pretty? That's not a representation of who Christ is. Christ expects us to smell like the sheep. He expects us to be out among one another. That's what we have to do. Every pastor I know whose worth is salt ought to smell like his congregation. Shouldn't sit high, lord over his congregation, put his hand down every now and then for a kiss. No. He ought to have dirt under his fingernails. He ought to know what's going on with his folk. It ought to be a part of what he does, because that's how you shepherd a flock. We have to take risks. And I'm told this now, that whatever we got that we spend, if we go over, if we get beyond what our resources are, and he's already said, when I come back, I'll pay you. I'm here to tell you today that he's going to pay you. He might not pay you in terms of worldly riches on this side, but I want you to know that you will be provided for. There is a reward that you're going to get for the service that you provide to people on this side. And I'm so glad that my reward is in heaven. That's why you can spend yourself completely out, and the Lord is going to provide for you. He's already done it. It's our job to help folk. If I can help somebody, if I can help somebody. A whole lot of folk have tried to sing that song. We never got any better help in our lives than when a man named Jesus came. Oh, he came and he helped us. Come on now, he helped us. Have you accepted his help? I'm opening the doors to the church right now. If you're here and you want to be a part of this fellowship, come on right now.
Well, there it is. I hope you were blessed by the God's word. It's my prayer that you will grow from this message. But in case you need a refresher, you can always stop by our physical location and worship with us at 7600 Division Avenue, over in the Eastlake community. I believe one visit and you'll find out that we truly are the friendliest church from the parking lot to the pulpit. Looking forward to meeting you. God bless you. Take care.